Hi, everyone. Welcome to our In the Mix panel presentation today. I'm Angela Piva, AES New York Section Chair, and on behalf of myself and the other committee members, we'd like to welcome everyone to our panel In the Mix, featuring Mincieli and Gloria Kaba. And since this is Women's History Month, I want to take a moment to mention this month is a celebration of women's contributions to history, culture, society, and has been observed annually in the month of March since 1987 in the United States. Why do we celebrate Women's History Month? Well, Women's History Month is a dedicated month to reflect on the often overlooked contributions of women to United States history, from Abigail Adams to Susan B. Anthony, Sojourner Truth, Amelia Earhart, Rosa Parks, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Amelia Earhart, Kamala Harris. The timeline of women's history milestones stretches back to the founding of the United States. This is a shout out to all the ladies and unsung heroes out there who have worked so hard to achieve their goals in life and in their chosen careers, some of us in very non-traditional careers. And of course, to all of the women, moms, sisters, relatives, friends, and colleagues who have supported us tirelessly without perhaps ever receiving the recognition they deserve. So I'd like to welcome our guests, Mancelli and Gloria Kaba, and I will read their bios for you guys right now. Mancelli is a renowned engineer, mixer, collaborator, and album project manager for Alicia Keys. The two-time Grammy winner has worked with some of music's biggest acts, including Mariah Carey and Jay-Z, among others. Mincieli is the owner of Jungle Studio Cities, which is one of New York's most elegant and best-equipped recording facilities in the world. Mincieli has been at the forefront of the movement to restore Manhattan to its former prestige as one of the world's top recording destinations. The versatility of Minceli's talents seamlessly bridge both the creative and business entities of music. Throughout her career, she has continued to represent the best of both worlds by understanding the business, tech, and strategy components of the industry. Her collaboration with 15 times Grammy Award-winning artist, songwriter, musician, producer Alicia Keys is one example of that. Together, Keys and Mincieli have cultivated an indelible creative synergy that has permeated a partnership beyond the studio. Along with Jody Gerson and Sam Kirby, they have formed the She Is Music Initiative, a first-of-its-kind collaboration spanning the music industry. She Is the Music is powered by creators, publishers, record labels, talent agencies, industry groups, media companies, streaming services, with the goal of creating change for women and building an equal future for music. That's awesome. Gloria. Gloria Kaba is a Ghanaian-American sound engineer, mixer, producer, and songwriter. Her work spans multiple genres and artists, including Madonna, Beyonce, Jack White, Solange, and Frank Ocean. Her notable projects include work on A Tribe Called Quest's final album, We Got It From Here, Thank You for Your Service, and Solange's breakthrough release, A Seat at the Table. For this, Gloria worked closely with legendary hip-hop artist and producer Q-Tip. She began her career as an intern at Battery Studios and later as an assistant engineer at MSR Studios. While there, she spent 6 years working with a host of engineers and producers, expanding her knowledge of the industry tenfold. Gloria now focuses mainly on producing and mixing, most recently working with acts like Miss Lauryn Hill, Looney, Amber Mark, and Molly Birch, while writing with rising stars Kaina, Nez Heads, and Ra. Her passion to nurture emerging talent is evident in her Listen In series, where she gives feedback to emerging artists. She also started a New York City-based writing camp for aspiring producers and songwriters called Locked In. Her combined experience and commitment to create platforms for future talent guarantee an influence on the ever-evolving music landscape for many years to come. So, welcome. All right. So excited to see you ladies today. And I think maybe I could, oh, Gloria, are you muted?
Check, can you hear me?
There you go. There you go. I guess one last thing I could say is happy St. Patrick's Day to everyone. So anyway, welcome. So So excited about this panel. You guys are both amazing. So let's start. My first question. Tell us a little bit about your background and what drew you to be an engineer. Let's start with Gloria.
Well, I've always had an affinity for music. I didn't come from a musical family, but I was always drawn to it. So as a kid, I took piano and guitar lessons and knew I wanted to be involved in music in some way. So when I got to college, I started taking recording classes, which is where I was educated on the role of the engineer. And then I started interning at studios. And then finally, I got a job as a runner at MSR Studios. And I did that for 3 years and worked my way up to assistant engineer and then assisted for 3 years. And that's when I got to be in the rooms with, the Beyoncés and the Frank Oceans and the Aretha Franklins, everything from theater to jazz to mainstream. And it was just an amazing experience. And I soaked it all up. And then after 3 years of doing that, I went freelance, and one of my main gigs was working with Q-Tip, and that culminated into work on a Tribe Called Quest final project and work on Solange's A Seat at the Table. And then in the past few years, I've kind of refocused on producing and mixing and emerging upcoming.
Cool. Anne.
I started, I was a guitar player. I loved music from way back. I used to look at the credits as a kid, right? And as like 10, 11, 12, 13 years old, I would open a vinyl or a cassette and look at the credits and study who were the popular studios, who were the popular session musicians, producers, and then I played guitar and I would go with my friend to a studio at the time named Skyline, which was on 37th Street in New York when I was 16 years old. I became fascinated by it, all the jobs and all the people doing incredible things in the background to support these artists. So I learned really on that like I could be part of this, right? I can do this. And I started interning for free way back in like 1991. I was 16 years old, like just getting in and learning and just observing. And I started at Skyline and I stood there until they closed. I was also at Right Track for 2 years. So because Skyline was closing, I was also working at Right Track. So I was at Right Track back in the glory days, like 93 to 94. And it was before they built their Studio C. And then I just kept evolving and working at CNC Music Factory and Axis. And then my long run was at Quad for 6 years because they redid all of their rooms and they focused on gear. It wasn't about like being pretty. It was about, hey, let's get this gear. And I love the staff. I really got to learn and educate myself on like 3 of the new SSL desks. And I stood there for 6 years where there was lots of artists doing album projects there, which was exciting. And it was right across from Right Track. So we shared a lot of the same sessions. And then from there, in 98, I met Alicia. I did a long run with Mariah too as an assistant engineer for 5 years. And I really learned like locking 3348s, doing offsets, vocal comping, punching in and out on the remote, all of that fun stuff. And then got with Alicia in 98, which was she was a young writer at the time, signed to Columbia Records, and she had a pub deal since she was literally 14 years old. So she'd work a lot in Studio C at Quad, and my relationship evolved each year, whether she had an apartment in Harlem and she had an MPC with some D88s back in the day, and then would come to Quad and dump all of her material and do her vocals. She evolved year by year, and I tried to evolve with her. And at the end of 2002, she hired me full time. We were part of a team, and there was 5 of us. One of her producers, mixer Manny Mariquin, another engineer by the name of Tony Black, who worked with us for about a year and a half, and then myself. And I've been with her now, it's 20 years. I started with her before, like she was battling the labels, and we went from basements to baseball fields together and always try to find ways to grow. And I've been 8 albums in now with her, as I'm currently working on her 8th album. And I, in the in-between time, try to get to work with other artists. And if I can't, I try to, get the gigs for some of my up and coming assistants and stuff. So
Very amazing. And yeah, I remember meeting you back then too. I have a few years on you, both of you. I'm a little more old school. But
I
and I
remember
remember
do a quad, right? Like, and I remember
yeah,
seeing you at
yes, that's
electrical
right.
because SSL was in there at the time, and I would like help SSL here and there because
I
they had new.
remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So
That's one of the first times I met you. Actually, down Washba had our good friend was, had said, Angela, do you know Anne? You need to know Anne. So that's how
yeah, I love
I
that.
first met you. So anyway, very cool. Great story. I love
Awesome.
it. I love it. Um, and just as a follow up, I know Gloria, you did say that you went to school in Philly. But for both of you, I guess, did you study music or recording in college? I guess Gloria, you did a little bit. But Anne, how about you?
I went to Institute of Audio Research at the time. From 90, the end of 90 to 92. They had a 2-year program at the time because it was before NYU had any of their like, Steinhardt or Clive Davis programs. So I went to NYU. I went to Clive. Sorry, I went to IAR, where if I wanted to, I could transfer my credits over to NYU, but I didn't. I felt like I have a shortcut, so I finished IAR, but I was already interning and I was already doing what I wanted to do. So I kind of put college off, and
Life took over. I
yeah,
mean, there's no one way. I bring it up because it's good. There's a lot of young folks listening, a lot of students, and they're
right.
all wondering. They're wondering, wow, how did they start?
Yeah.
There's no one way, really.
Nope, there's no rules. That's the beauty of it. And
No
it's and,
rules.
and still till today, you don't have to feel like the pandemic has you in your bedroom and you can't get out there. There's so many ways you could connect and communicate and get your discography out there, and there is opportunity, and we're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, so it's exciting.
Absolutely, I'm with you on that. And for me, I went to Berklee School of Music in Boston many moons ago when they first had started their music tech program, music production and engineering. So,
That's awesome.
yeah. And then I started interning and then assisting at Unique Recording, which was quite an adventure, and it's been an amazing journey. So,
You've been a
um,
pioneer for us, like
for
it's
sure.
also about you and like you mixing back in the day when there wasn't many female mixers, if any at all. So you kind of paved the way for all of us, and I know that from way on, early on, because I've seen it. So thank you for having us.
oh my goodness, I'm so honored. I'm honored to be with you. I feel like you're both paving the way, and I'm watching what you're both doing, and all the time. So you're both amazing. So, but that is, yeah, I remember I was mixing Naughty by Nature and a couple other things back in the day, and it was,
It's like Queen Latifah, Elton John,
Yeah.
like
yeah.
one song or two songs for Elton John. Yeah, way back, definitely.
I think people don't realize it's a difficult business. It's the arts and entertainment is hard. You just have to just bust your butt, man. You just have to work nonstop. No birthdays, no holidays, no, it's in the studio all night long. But it's like that for whatever you're dedicated to in life. If you want to succeed, you just have to be
Yeah,
really committed and make it happen.
it's a
So,
little unglamorous at times that we all experience, right? I think
yeah,
see it on Instagram these days and it looks so glamorous, but if you can really be in it for the long haul, it's also very rewarding. And I
yes,
still look at it as, look, I'm still a student of the game. I'm still learning all these years
absolutely.
later, so
That's a great way to look at it. You're right. So I'll move on to our next question. What platform and or media format do you prefer for mixing? And what are some of the tools or go-to pieces of hardware or software you like to incorporate? So, Anne, you want to start?
sure. So I obviously use Pro Tools. I think it's the universal tool right now for mixing. There's lots of production tools that people use, but everything winds up getting exported and built into Pro Tools. For us with Alicia, especially because we're mixing as we go along, right? Every day she wants a better rough mix. So either if I'm mixing one of her songs or I'm handing it off, it's Pro Tools. So I can hand it to Manny or hand it to Sturbin and they could continue, right? For analog gear, I love my GML 8200, stereo parametric EQ. It's fantastic, especially sometimes these days. If I'm getting a vocal right, and maybe Alicia's collaborating with someone, and they're in their bedroom right now tracking vocals, and they're in 3 different studios using different mics, I love my GML and my 33609 to really match the vocal tones. I feel like using the analog gear is so much more rewarding that you can't get the frequencies aren't the same in the plugins that they are on the analog gear sometimes, and 3 tweaks of a knob with the analog gear allows me to get my comp in a good place because it's my job to make sure everything is perfect before I send it to the mixer or mix it myself. So I find myself breaking out those 2 pieces of gear. I love my Manley massive passive EQ, 4-band EQ with high and low pass filters, and my stereo bus compressor. I love my API 2500 and 33609 I use in 2 ways, either on a vocal comp if I need to come back out and really mold the EQ a tone, if I need to come back out of the box and back in and really match vocal levels and comp, right, clean up the comps as I call it. And I love the 33609 on the 2 bus, but obviously I love it because I use a 2254 on vocals sometimes, and the 33609, if we geeked out for a second, kind of it has the hand wire transformer and circuits that the 2254 does. So I love to, utilize that across our stereo bus. And also if I don't have my 2254, I could use one side of the 33609. I love CL1B compressor. It's very transparent. On the plugin end of things, I try to keep it very minimal with plugins because I never know what studio I'm going to be at.
Yeah.
And it causes me eye lock. I could be, right now I'm in Bahamas. Next week I'll be in Utah. Like, I have to, stay to 5 plugins, and I try to teach students that you can work with 6 or 7 plugins. You don't have to boot up your session and have like 20 plugins across everything. Like, stick to 5 or 6 plugins and really learn how to work those plugins and how to dial in your sounds with those plugins. I love Focusrite Red by Avid, Purple Ink, which is like a Mach of 1176 compressor from Avid. I love all the wave stuff, the SSLG channel, the SSL EQ, and for like reverbs, I love Revibe, Sound Toys, and Valhalla. And I love compressor like the Distressor. I feel like is a very versatile compressor, whether you're mixing, whether you're recording, whether you're recording a guitar, whether you're recording a vocal. It mocks a lot of the other compressors, so it's a good tool to learn for a student. But that's
yeah, those are some excellent suggestions too. And I also tell my students too to just learn. You want to learn the fundamentals. You don't want to just rely on using a plugin. You have to know what makes it tick. How to adjust the parameters. Those same parameters are on every plugin. And for outboard gear as well, you have to just learn the basics. And sometimes you have to make do with what you have. But I'm with you on a lot of your gear and plugins.
The Distressor.
Actually.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just going to say the Distressor manual is, any student wanted to look at it online. It explains all the different compressors.
Yes, I was going to actually say I'm a big Distressor girl myself. Big shout out to Dave Durr from Empirical Labs.
Awesome.
And yes, he has a fantastic manual, which I usually hand that back section out to my students. So it's kind of funny that you're saying that. So, but it's a great compressor. Awesome. So Gloria, do you want to chime in?
Yeah. Just to rebound off what Anne said, I mean, she named great gear, which I also love. I mean, 33609 on a master bus, I'm definitely using, also on vocals. My preferred platform is in the box, just because, like Anne said, just the convenience of being able to mix on a plane or go to the Bahamas, go to New York, just being able to pull it up and it's there. When I can, I will run stuff through analog gear and then print it back, just so that when I open up my session, it's all in one place. So I love running things through the LA two-way. I'll use the Distressors as parallel compression on drums. But really, it's really in the box, and the plugins are great. I mean, something I'm usually reaching for is that the FabFilter Pro Q3 is usually first in my channel strip as a corrective EQ. I love the dynamic functionality that they've incorporated in the new version. R-Bass is one of my favorites, which is an older plugin, but it's really great for the bringing out the bass harmonics, and you've done obviously kicks and basses and synth, but really brings out that low end. Again, for tracking vocals, the CL1B is definitely my go-to. But yeah, it's really about like how you can incorporate all those things and really use what you have, but also stay efficient and being able to pull things up and recall and turn things around.
And I'm just curious because you do a bit of writing too. Do you do MIDI sequencing in Pro Tools? Do you use something else like Ableton or Logic, or you have any preferences, or depends?
Yeah, MIDI sequencing in Pro Tools is it's still a bit of a struggle. I'm usually using Logic.
Mm-hmm.
Ableton sometimes, but Logic is my go-to. So I'm always writing in Logic, sequencing, programming in Logic, and then mixing in Pro Tools.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. And before we pass on this question, any new resources out there you'd like to share with us? Anybody, any new goodies or toys or anything, plugins you can think of?
I've been kind of investigating the AI plugins. Isotope makes the Ozone 9 for mastering and Neutron for mixing. I was a little skeptical at first. It's great for a beginner to really get them started in, just to begin starting off the mix and, ending their mix, but also in mastering. But you can really tailor those plugins to your taste. And that's what I'm sort of investigating, how I can use those to just incorporate in my workflow. But yeah, that's I guess on the newer end, that's just kind of what I'm sort of investigating, just to again make my workflow easier and make me more efficient.
And Anne, anything new?
For me, I've been learning Ableton Live. I've been using, as Gloria mentioned, sometimes I throw my files in there when I want to warp something, or I want to really, it's really good at like determining tempos and time stretching really quickly. So I'm diving into Ableton as I'm trying to. Alicia sequences off her old, like her MPC, but we dump it into Pro Tools. All the MIDI goes into Pro Tools. So
MPC 3000 or what's
5,000 she has.
5000? Mm-hmm.
Yep, and she's slowly getting off of that. So I've been learning the MPC Live too. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the newer version of the MPC. But again, we dump all of our MIDI info into Pro Tools as a backup. She has a
Right.
Pro Tools rig, so I'm constantly digging into a lot of the virtual synths. I've got the Roland Cloud, which is really exciting. It imitates a lot of the old Roland synths that we knew how to program back in the day. She has a lot of those synths, so it's nice to have the cloud up, and we're diving into that. All of the native instrument stuff is really fun and amazing, and I feel like every week they're throwing in a new, synth or keyboard or drum library to their bundle. I have to agree, stuff. It's amazing how they're expanding. So big fans of them as well.
Well, I'm so glad you brought up the Roland Cloud because that's what I was going to chat about too. I'm a big fan of the Roland Cloud. Actually, I have an article out this month, educational article about it, but it's fantastic. I mean, you have all these amazing Roland synths at your fingertips: 808, 909, Juno 106, a lot of others as well. Classics, for kind of creating, crafting sound. Um, Also, there's a new plugin maybe you guys want to check out, and some of our audience here, by Leapwing. It's an Al Schmidt
Oh wow!
plugin. Yeah, and there's like 6 different profiles or something for brass, drums, vocals, mix bus, etc., and different
Oh
EQ
wow!
curves and reverb room effects, etc. And I haven't worked with it in depth yet, but I kind of just stuck it on a vocal and started listening, and it just already sounded amazing. And of course, I'm a huge fan of Al Schmidt, as we all are. So, and
Yeah,
it's not that expensive either. It's a really nice plugin. So that's
that's
one
awesome.
thought. Yeah, and I always tell students, etc., to young folks that if you're getting into, of course, analog gear is an investment. Well, plugins can be pricey too, but the 500 series racks, and it's kind of, if you're a newbie, if you're starting out, it's really pretty cost effective and pretty cool. All the companies now have smaller modules, 500 series modules, etc. So, and it's kind of portable for
I have a
traveling.
collection of those. I have a collection of those. I have everything from the Quad 8 to the Purple Inks to the Shadow Hills to the Chandler stuff, the Red Devils way back in the day. I love, 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 love all the 500 series. And I love a good old SM7. I feel like you can get a great vocal tone for like $800 with a 500 series rack and like a good old SM7, right? You can't go
Yeah,
wrong.
it's amazing. It's amazing what you can do now. Um, Well, let's see. We'll move
Yeah.
on to our next question. Unless there's anything else. Any other suggestions? That's it. Okay.
No, you
Um,
nailed it with that.
all right. Is there a difference in your methodology or approach when working with an established artist as opposed to a new artist or group? Let's start with Gloria.
Not really, actually. Whenever I'm working with someone for the first time, it always starts with a conversation just about what their vision is, what they're looking to do. I'm always trying to, make them comfortable, going for the familiar, but also trying to push them a little left. That also depends on the relationship you have with the person. Obviously, if you're working with, a Q-tip group I've worked with for a long time, there's more freedom to do that. Like the person, how hard you can push them, or if you can push them at all. But obviously working with someone who you don't have a relationship with, you're kind of like just trying to figure it out. But all in all, I'm trying to push them a little further and challenging them, and also just trying to get to the heart of what their vision is.
Fair enough. Anne?
I think that, I try to research each artist that I'm working with, right? Like whether they're up and coming or they're established and been around for a while, I try to really learn. Communication is key when you're tracking with Pro Tools. I try to learn the little things. I try to watch videos. There's so much information now that you could gather. Like back in the day, we didn't have any of that. You can look at a video and watch what microphone they're using, right? Like you
It's
can
amazing. It's
make
amazing.
make a few phone calls and figure out what their mic pre compressors, and I try to study all that stuff and see what they like, and get them comfortable, and get them not intimidated. With someone like Alicia, I have a lot of creative freedom. I could sit and vocal produce and comp her vocals. Whereas if it's Mariah Carey, you're gonna sit there and record all day, and she's gonna tell you. It's a different. Every
Yeah,
artist has a different approach, you
different
know.
vibe.
Correct. And if it's an up and coming artist, I kind of try to figure out what their flow is and complement that. Figure out, maybe I can teach them a thing or two. Maybe they still, even though they're up and coming, a lot of these artists really are like know a lot about the production process, or sometimes they don't. And I'm trying to teach them, like, hey, we don't need to record through auto tune, like let's auto tune later. Let's melodyne later. Let's try and let's put like auto tune on the monitor. We don't have to record with it on the vocal, because on that's what they're doing in their bedroom. They're putting auto tune on the way to tape or on the way to record, and it's like, hey, we could set this up a different way where it's in the monitor section so your vocal is clean, and then you can tweak your auto tune. You can use auto tune live. You can figure out the auto tune version that you're comfortable with, and have it in the monitor section, which is essentially the same thing, so then you could tune it properly later. You're not stuck with that sound, so I try to learn and gauge a lot of that, like what microphones, what do they like, try to get them comfortable,
Yeah, and I think you mentioned a little bit about this in an article recently too, but an engineer almost has to read the room, or an engineer producer. You want the artist to feel comfortable, you want them to trust you. And then, of course, the teaching thing comes in, because now people do have these tools at home and they get used to working a certain way. But then when they work with someone else, but it's a great opportunity for them to, kind of bust out and really learn some new skills. Yeah, it's about kind of explaining and getting them to try things a different way. Yeah.
Right, like they'll try 3 different microphones. They'll be in their bedroom and they'll have vocals recorded 3 different ways, and then when I get the files, I can hear all the differences, right? You can hear the difference from verse to verse, and then it's my job to go in and try to EQ and perform surgery to get everything to sound the same. So I try to teach them to try and be consistent. Little tips that even if they're in their bedroom, they can, be practicing, right? So
Yeah, and some great records are made in the bedroom, as we
exactly.
all know. I mean, there's no rules.
Yeah.
No rules. And it's really pretty fascinating, actually. And now that the technology is so much more affordable, so
Yeah,
it's pretty.
and it sounds good, right? Like years
Does.
ago,
It's
it didn't
amazing.
sound good. Like you can get an Apollo twin, and it sounds good, right? Like
No, I mean, think about the times that we had to set up a recall of a mix, and that would, okay, go have coffee, come back. It's not just pressing a button.
Yeah, and I miss those days, right? I think we really learned how to use our ears, right? We'd pull the TV track up, the instrumental, and really have to go through each channel, right, with all the inserts.
And
And
you'd have more breaks too, I think. Like sometimes we're too full on. Like
yeah,
you need to take a step back too. And I know Gloria too, you still work a bit at the power station. I'm sure you still do a bit of recalling. I saw some nice photos of patch bay spaghetti recently online. It was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, oh, I skipped. I'm gonna go back one. I forgot one question, but I know we are focusing on mixing today, and maybe Anne, you might have mentioned a couple things though. Uh, However, what are some of the microphones and preamps you prefer when tracking vocals or instruments? So,
you
So,
want
Gloria, you want to
yeah,
take that first, Gloria?
yeah, for sure. My favorites are Neve Pre's, whether it's the 1081, the 1073, I mean, whatever I can get my hands on. Love those. Love.
Have you tried the remakes also, like the Warm Audio? And I think there's a couple others. I'm just curious.
I haven't tried the warm audio. I've used Sheps, which are very similar.
Hmm.
But yeah, always reaching for those, and the Chandler Pre's, which have a similar character to them as well. As far as compressors, I mentioned my favorite is the CL1B. I love, love, love distressors. As for mics, I'm a sucker for a vintage tube, like the Norman, the U47, the U67, and the SM7, which I use very often now. And a lot of the artists I've actually been teaching to record and set up at home, will grab the SM7. Just, I mean, one, it's affordable, it's a workhorse. It really sounds great. So those are kind of my go-tos. Also, again, the 33609 is something I reach for. But yeah, those are my highlights, my favorites.
Anne, anything else to add?
yeah, for me, I love the Red 7 mic pre for transparent sound, clean sound. I love the 1073. I've been to staple of mine for a very long time. I love the Chandler stuff. I love V76s. I got a great pair from Vintage King that are amazing. And I love API 550s, the new version as well. They're built a lot better and they're affordable and they sound amazing. And you can use them in anything from a vocal to a whole drum kit. I have about 16 of those in each of my rooms, and I travel with like 3 racks of those, like 12. There's 4 per rack. Compressors, I love. Again, the Distressor is one of the most versatile compressors. LA2A, I love. Opto tube compressor, 1176 FET compressor, 2254, I explained before. CL1B for transparency, clean, pretty vocals. I love C800, U47, SM7, M16 by Telefunken, this $1,200 mic. Sounds amazing for the folks at home that are and I love the DPA stuff for pianos. Check out the
Yeah.
4006s and 4011s. They sound amazing. They sound amazing on guitars, on overheads for drums. If you're at home and you want to, if you have some money that you want to spend without having to, they make these 260 mics. They have the tube version and the solid. They have a tube version and a condenser version for their small condensers for overheads that you can purchase as well.
Have you tried the Earthworks piano bar? Just curious, because that's something I use a lot just to set up quickly, and sometimes it's good in a room if you don't have a lot of isolation too. Um,
The
any thoughts on
Earthwork,
that?
actually, the studio that we're working at in LA, actually has one. I have a pair of Earthworks mics that I haven't um, experimented with yet. They're about 5 years old. I think they only go in Omni, and I can't remember the model number off the top of my head, but I would love to experiment more with them. I do a lot with our 270 mic for our piano because I like mid side when it's, the technique.
Yeah.
I love to use our Telefunken 270 mic. It's stereo version of a 251, and I can change the polar patterns on the capsules. Have one in cardioid over middle C, and then flip the other one into figure eight. And
Hmm.
depending on like what Alicia's playing, I can really spread the depth of the piano by pushing the center and the 2 sides.
I'm sure that sounds beautiful too. Um, I think for me too, I've been tracking a lot on the Euphonics S5. I like the mic pre's on there a lot. But of course, I like a lot of the choices you've mentioned too. 1073s have always been one of my favorites. I like the Grace mic pre's, the 501s. Manley Voxbox, I've always loved that. I love Manley mics, the gold reference mic. Earthworks Audio Technica has wonderful mics too. Royer Ribbons. I'm a big fan of the Audio Technica 4047. It's sort of a recreation of the Neumann FET 47 from back in the day, except much more affordable. So that's been one of my go-to mics too. It seems to sound good on almost everyone. I've used it for a lot of other things besides vocals too. There is a website too, I'll just mention for the students out there called, I think it's Audio Kitchen. And I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but you can test all kinds of different mics out on it. It's a
Oh,
virtual,
wow.
yeah. So it's a lot of fun actually. So you might want to check that out.
Awesome. I wrote it down.
Very cool. So, however you're comfortable answering, whether it's detailed or generically, what are some of your favorite sessions or types of sessions to work on? Or if you'd like to tell us any highlight sessions with the artists and musicians you've worked with. So, Anne, you can start this one first.
I like to be challenged by Alicia at this point, and she definitely challenges. She's a musician and an arranger and a producer. Obviously, it's her song, it's the vision of her song. So she starts with a blank piece of paper, and this gear is crayons in our crayon box. So I love the sessions where it's like live drums over program drums, and we're not just looping and we're not just making music like putting a puzzle together. We're actually bringing live musicians in that are playing over her 8-bar loop with the quantization off her MPC on purpose, where the we're still looping to a tempo, but the fluctuations of what you're programming, every bar and every beat is not repetitive. My favorite sessions is she'll call a musician in and ask them to play from top to bottom, and they're like, well, can't you copy and paste? And she's like, I don't want to copy and paste. You guys got too familiar with playing 8 bars. We want the human feel. We want
Come on, now that's lazy.
right. We want to touch back into, but that's what technology. So I like the fact that she's retro futuristic. She'll have 4 different producers working on the same song and take
Right.
elements from each of those producers, and it has to land all in the same session. So the challenge to keep it organized, color code it, keep the files organized, because she's constantly like, put that kick in, put the Emil Haney kick in, put the, Johnny McDade kick in, put the 808 in from Swiss. And it's organizing, but the tempos, which is fun too, is like maybe one producer bumped her tempo up. So it's a lot of challenging things, but if you can do it, it's amazing. And Beyonce works the same way. My friend Stu White, who was my assistant for a very long time, works with her, and it's the same thing. It's like for me, the more challenging it could be, the live drums over program drums, over her Moog bass, over bringing her bass player in, and we're using this five bass from 1956. It's her violin bass. It's fun to mix and match all of those elements together as she's painting the picture. She's the one that's producing, arranging. Compare her to Prince in a way. She like always makes music and she's never working on an album and not working on an album. So all these twists and turns during the session and the challenges is what makes me better, and the fact that I can always be mixing as we increment day by day on these songs. So I guess
Keeps you on your toes.
yeah, I think her sessions are really really challenging, so
We don't really have documentation that's like tangible anymore. We don't have track sheets, although sometimes I think we should try to keep, it'd be great if we could.
yeah.
We have virtual track sheets. Not, it depends how the project is passed along. If it's just yourself working on it, it's easier to kind of, detail it and color code it. I'm glad you mentioned that actually, because that's super important for folks to think about too when they're mixing. Keeping track of everything, maybe color coding, always
Yeah.
making sure you name things, your
Playlist,
takes.
right? Like where your playlist lives.
Yes.
How
Save.
many times, duplicating a playlist, right? Get a notepad, write down all the playlists. I think
Yes.
is important. Like we bring in Steve Jordan, our drummer, and Alicia will keep the same playlist up until the bridge, and then have bridge on out. There's maybe 8 takes of that. So being able to navigate and make notes of what the differences are in the playlists, because the more you could organize, the artists want you to be quick, right? So the
Yeah.
color coding and naming allows you to be quick and organized, so you're not taking time like, oh wait, what do I have to open? What? I work linearly sometimes, so if she's tracking, I'll have one version and then she'll want to do an edit of a 4-bar version. Instead of making a playlist, I copy everything over to the next like tape, and then
Right.
she'll have 5 different versions, and it's easier to see and access. Playlist is like, I don't want to switch to playlist mode. I don't want to keep, and if she wants to combine 2 playlists, they're right there for me to copy and paste. Take this playlist of this, or take. So it's just little tricks that you learn after, so many years of sitting, with plugin, with Pro Tools, and working with playlists and the limitations of them, that allows
Yeah.
you to figure out all the ways to maneuver.
Yeah, and I think you have to master, which I know that you both have, that focus and concentration that an engineer producer has to have. Like, even no matter what's going on around you, your ears are always on the speakers, or you're
Right.
really preoccupied with kind of what's going on and making notes. You're sort of in another world. You're just in the music at that time. And that's, I don't know, that's how I like to think of it in a way. So,
And I like to, just another cool thing is, I like to, in the notes section in Pro Tools, in the comments, put the mic pre, the microphone, the compressor that I use. I get sessions, we'll send sessions out to a producer. They'll take all our plugins off. And when I get the stuff back, I can't even open their session. I have to import what they did into mine, because they
yeah.
removed a lot of the elements that Alicia wants to keep. So the remote thing, I'm sure Gloria has this issue too, is a challenge when you send something out or they don't have the plugins you use. So what did I learn? I bounce stems now. Now I
Yeah.
bounce stems because, offline bouncing is so much easier. It's like, okay, here's the stems. All my plugins are in place. You're not going to delete my files. You're not going to, and then when I get it back, I could put it back in my session and use the stems and hopefully match the arrangement if their arrangement is different. But
Yeah, that's a big time saver. I mean, that's a
yeah,
very good idea.
And even when mixing, I will request the session, but also stems with everything printed, especially if there are effects that are important to the
right.
mix or something they've been tweaking for days and days and days. I will ask for that printed as well, just in case I don't have, whatever plugins they're using. So yeah, also stems are super important.
I think you hit it on the head. Like, I think artists get demoitis, right? No matter how much
Oh my goodness.
they've been living with the demos for so long. It's like, as a mixer, sometimes you don't want to take things. You want to see what they've done because the plugins are part of the production, right?
Yeah. It's hard. It's hard working with certain artists. I mean, some are very open and some wanted just a new mix, but sometimes, as you both know, an artist comes to you and they are just demoitis. They're stuck. So
Yeah.
it's almost like they want their mix, but just slightly different. And it's always, it's a challenge. I see Gloria's laughing over there. It's just,
Yeah, but that's where communication comes in. Again, I said, I love to start with the conversation, and I will ask, like, how closely do you want me to stick to this rough mix? What about it do you like? What about it do you not, care, what direction I go in?
first they'll tell you no, but they mean yes.
Right, but it's all about, decoding and trying to
Yeah.
figure out what their vocabulary is. So
Yeah.
yeah, every experience is different, but it's just about asking the right questions.
And anything else you want to share,
Um,
Gloria? Any favorite sessions or types of sessions or?
Yeah, I guess, just to, obviously to answer your question, I really like getting lost in a project, and obviously working with an artist closely, like Anne and Alicia, working with Tip for years, and then, on the Tribe project, just like really learning a person, learning their workflow, and trying to, facilitate that without getting in the way. And also as a freelancer, I'll do sessions, that are one-offs, like maybe a couple days here, a week here, and that is a challenge because it keeps you on your toes and it forces you to be flexible. But also, I mean, really just getting lost in a thing from beginning to end is just probably one of my favorite scenarios.
Yeah, and it's fun. I think both ways. One way with an artist you've worked with and that you're fortunate enough to be able to help them develop and craft their sound and and vision. And then but it is refreshing to just like a blank slate, like someone new, because that's, you just go from wherever, you just creating, and both ways are really a lot of fun. So
And then working long term with someone, you really can get, again, I'm sure Anne can relate, to a level of trust and vulnerability, which I think just like really frees them up and allows their creative expression to just go. It's limitless at that point. When they're comfortable with you and you're comfortable with them, and you're just, it's just a very special experience.
and on that note, in the course of our careers, we often shift to wear several different hats, working on different facets of our business. So tell us a little bit about that, and maybe some info on the different hats you wear. So, Gloria, you want to take that one first?
Sure. It's a funny thing because I've been talking about this a lot with young people who, ask like, how can I get started? How can I, ensure that I'm successful? And it is about wearing different hats. I mean, it's about, getting in where you fit in. If you want to be a producer, like your way in might be you're great at tuning vocals, so you offer up that service to someone, or sorry, there's a siren going by. I'm gonna mute. I'm
Oh,
right next to a
there-
window. But
that's
yeah,
okay.
just getting in where you fit in, just adding as many tools to your tool bag as possible. I started out wanting to produce and write, so as a creative, and then going down the engineering route, and then kind of pivoting and going back to being a creative. And then, as of the first of this year, as studio manager at Power Station, and really loving that. But I think I haven't really forced the roles at all. It's sort of just going at, just accepting the opportunities at the right times. I mean, there are things I turned down in the past that I'm open to now, and things that I turned down now that I think I'll be open to in 10 years. So it's really about the lanes I think will keep me engaged and inspired,
Hmm.
um, and working also and working. So
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, I think at each stage of the different stages of our career too, like different doors open, and you just have to be open. And sometimes you find something else that you love too, that's equally, or that just enhances your main thing. Anne, how about you?
I like being that I've worked with Alicia, I've developed this whole department for myself through the years, and it's been kind of fun. I became album project manager now, and realize how easier it is for Alicia that I can do that because I can keep track of the credits, I can book all the producers, I can book all the writers, I can work with the labels and the pub companies and the writer and producers.
And
Manage
that role is very A&R creative, which is
exactly,
a role that's gone away a lot in the changing of the
exactly.
labels, in the evolving. That is super important. It's a very creative role too.
Yeah, and I get to like, you know, um, figure out what the vision is of each album, and then we go from there. Like, what producers do you want to work with? What writers do you want to collaborate with? And it allows me to think about the engineering when she says I want to bring in this type of musician, who should I bring in? And it's like, okay, you want this really pretty guitar sound, versatile guitar player. I'm going to call Carlos Alomar. So I'm already thinking about engineering before I'm actually at my, like I'm able to bring the right people in that will complement my engineering and her producing. Does that make sense? So like, and even the credits and keeping track of the twists and turns of the verses, the versions of the songs and the producers, so we can give that information to management and we can lock in our deals at the end, right, when we're ready to turn our album in. So she doesn't have to take all that info. It's hard to give that info to a label person or management, someone from management, that basically aren't part of the session. So because it's me and her, we can just get that information so much, we can expedite it. And then
Yeah.
I love working with her on all the strategies. Like, I feel like everything intertwines, all the DSP stuff and the tech stuff intertwines with what we're doing, and how we take our audio and content and connect the dots with it, and make it part of the album strategy. So it's a lot of fun working with folks like Instagram, or you know all the DSPs like Tidal and Apple and Spotify, and along the way also working on the initiatives to keep the bar higher, either through the Grammys and or with Alicia, working and reimagining our 360 audio mixes and having a whole
Mm-hmm.
team like George Massenberg and Eric Schilling that are mixing the stuff but reimagining it, not just pulling stems up, reimagining it, getting files, getting raw files and mix files from myself and Manny, putting them together. So I feel like today it's pretty amazing. You could be an engineer, engineers are producing, producers are engineering, writers are engineering. There's no rules at the end of the day. So I want to
Yeah.
someone that could learn and be able to stay with the trends in the industry. And obviously on the business side of things, I'm doing lots of building the studios and have a great project I'm working on with Sony Music Global and Rob Stringer and building facilities around the world, which is exciting. It keeps the music community going. It keeps the students being able to be hired at a school. We have
Mm-hmm.
5 locations we're building right now. You'll see more about that in the future, but being able to connect the dots as an engineer and evolve as an engineer, a lot of that stuff helps me with my engineering, picking acoustical treatments and finishes and designing allows me to take what I've learned from engineering at all these studios, but also helps me to learn. So it's been a great, you know, I always try to learn every year. So this past year has been great for me to be able to dive into the depth of that stuff.
That sounds amazing from both of you, actually. And I think maybe perhaps we're lucky too, because we both worked in a variety of different studios. So younger folks out there sometimes are working more in home studios and they haven't gotten the chance, or people are just passing files around. So, that is such a great experience because there's different gear, different speakers, different setups,
Right.
different room designs, different people. So that is something that probably helped us hone our skills early on and be sharp just from moving around a lot. But yeah, I think, all that contributes and that's extremely cool. We're excited to hear about the Sony project too. We'll look forward to hearing more about that. Sounds really
Yeah, thank
cool.
you.
Really cool. Um, so our next question, professional organizations for our industry, such as AES, She is the Music, Sound Girls Naris, and several others provide information, networking, set standards, and much more. What are your thoughts on these, and how can they be helpful to up and coming new professionals? So, Anne, do you want to take that one first?
Sure, I'll start with Naris, and I always believe that, like, man, they do so much for the music community as a whole. It's not just about the Grammy Awards and Grammy season, it's about what they're doing with Grammy in the schools and Grammy U and what they're doing for music cares and advocacy. They're one of the only people that advocate for our producers and engineers and songwriters and creators. So, I sat on the board of trustees for 4 years. Myself and Alicia were really involved. We hosted the show for 2 years, and it's just also about educating the artist how much that the Academy does besides just being an award show. So that's number one. It's been a great run there. And then obviously, She is the Music was something that we wanted to start. We wanted to move the needle. We wanted to myself, Alicia, Jody Gerson, and Sam Kirby wanted to start an organization and put the work in first before we announced it. So we created pillars, we created chapters, and everyone's on deck. Everyone's invited to join. Everyone, you know, it's been really exciting, and we're gonna unveil our Chicago chapter. And we have a database, we have mentorship program that's incredible, and we have our songwriting camps, and we're ramping up again. We've done a lot of virtual stuff, but now we're being able to like start scheduling stuff back in person, and we want to help the next generation, and we have some incredible resources and incredible partners from studios to labels, and we're seeing change. We're seeing folks join our database. If anything that I can promote, join the database, because every day we get a call like, hey, James Corden wants to, he needs an assistant, stage manager, or and our database works. You connect with the folks. You could look at it by state, and by your job description, whether you're an assistant engineer, whether you're a DP, whether you're a tour manager, stage designer, you can be part of the database. And so we encourage everyone to join, and we wanted to connect the dots. We did a couple of panels, and a lot of the industry, up and coming industry folks said, look, we need help connecting the dots. that would help move the needle. And obviously, Stacy Smith is a part of our founding board, and she is part of Annenberg and did the whole study, Dr. Stacy
Right.
Smith. And we're working with her to really affect change. So we're excited.
Yeah. That's wonderful. I mean, so there's no charge for joining She Is the Music. Is that correct? It's like a
That's
free,
correct.
because I signed up a while ago, I think, and I think I've gotten a couple calls actually. So yes, I want to encourage everyone out there to please sign up. She Is the Music. Get in the database. It's a great way of networking. So for other folks to find you or you to find other people as well. And there's a lot of people that are looking to hire women engineer mixers and or producers specifically too. So it's kind of, it's a really nice way to find different people. So I want to encourage that strongly today. And also, it just sparked an idea. So we'll have to do She's the Music and AES combined event eventually. That would
Absolutely.
be wonderful.
That would
So
be really cool. A cool
yeah,
panel or in-person event where we can teach up and coming,
yeah, I'm gonna bug you about that. I love that idea.
Yeah,
So,
totally. We're totally down.
Gloria, how about you?
Yeah, it's been amazing to watch the organizations pop up over the years. When I was coming up, there weren't many. I think the biggest one was Grammy U, which I was actually a part of when I was in college, but that was really it at the time. But just in the past few years, the calls I'll get to be involved in, from obviously She Is the Music to Women's Audio Mission to Sound Girls to and on and on and on. It's really amazing, and any way I can be involved in She Is the Music, just call me anytime.
Oh, please,
Um,
yes, we would
yeah.
love. We're ramping up, Gloria. You're gonna hear from us.
Okay.
Totally, like we did a lot during the pandemic, but it wasn't the right time to just be like, bling, we're out here, like look at
Yeah,
us. We wanted to do the work behind the scenes,
Yeah.
and now that we're opening, we have a big event we're doing in the summer. So I will hit you up offline.
All
So
right.
thank
Let's do
sounds
it.
great. Gloria, what about a couple of things you're working on? This songwriter camp Locked In. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so Locked In is a New York City-based writing camp, which I started in 2019, and it really was to nurture the creative community of New York. And it's kind of a twofold approach, and it's an outlet for working producers and writers, but also an opportunity for upcoming or aspiring producers and writers to sit in, learn, and observe and ask questions. We did a sort of test session at Electric Garden actually in 2019, and we're looking to do our next one, but just trying to figure out how we can work during the pandemic. We've kind of considered a virtual or a hybrid situation, but I really want to do it in person. So hoping that later this year we can do our next installment. And I also actually have a series. It's called Listen In, which I do on Instagram Live, which is I have emerging or up and coming artists send me music, and I actually give them live feedback and anything from songwriting to production to mixing. So just as a way to give back and give people an outlet, especially during this time.
I think that's a
Let's
pretty
connect.
dope idea too. I like that.
Let's connect on that too. Maybe we can do something with Jungle if you need studio.
I would love that.
Yeah, let's connect on that. She is the music, and we do it.
Yep,
It's let's
let's do
all
it.
connect offline and
Absolutely. The more we do that,
brainstorm.
the stronger we are.
Yeah,
The more people we can encourage and mentor. And for many
absolutely.
years, I've done a lot of mentoring. I'm sure you both have, just officially, unofficially. I just got my signed certificate. I'm going to date myself from Harry Connick Jr. I think it was 30 years in Naris. Yeah, and
Oh, that's all.
I know it's pretty funny. It's like, where did the years go? Anyway, but it's been, I think, being part of a professional organization is really important for us, and it's a way of supporting each other and others and young people coming up. And an organization I got involved with a couple years ago is called Sound Thinking. It's through another engineer friend of mine actually who recommended me, and they have a big grant from the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment and a couple other places from CUNY, and they have a program for young high school folks in the New York City area. So anywhere in the 5 boroughs, it's a music tech program, and also about the arts, acting, etc. So they have summer programs, and they have some things that go on in the winter as well, workshops and etc. And they also have something called College Now, and these are all free initiatives, free programs for these students. They just have to sign up. And there's a lot of panels and things, but it's really rewarding. It's been a great program. It's nice to sort of help inspire others. And I know, you know, as we were coming up, maybe for Gloria, I don't know, that maybe there's more women because you're a little younger than both of us, I think, but there's hardly any women engineers, mixers, producers. Even now, you know, this is something we really have to work on. The Annenberg study, et cetera. It's still there's only 2 or 3% women engineer, mixers, producers, and songwriters or more. But these are things we have to work on, I think. And just, you know, by encouraging people in their craft and in their careers is really a great way we can do that. And these organizations are just really fantastic. So I'm so glad you're both doing that. It's wonderful. So keep up the good work. And we're gonna be talking after this. So
Thank you.
one short follow up on that. Let's see. Well, and what do you think other industry folks can do to help promote young people in their careers? In other words, how can we all work towards leveling the opportunity playing field equally for everyone? You might have answered this already, but if there's anything else you want to say about this.
Yeah, I mean, I think we mentioned it, just like creating these platforms for up and coming writers, producers, engineers to learn and to observe and really just create visibility also, so that they can see, whether it's women or minorities, so that they can see people who look like them doing what they want to do.
Excellent. All right, I made a faux pas. Actually, I said Harry Connick. I meant to say Harvey Mason. Sorry, Harvey Mason from Naris. Anyway, Anne, anything else to add to that?
I would say the same thing. When I do these type of camps, I really try to get in the community and give opportunity to folks that need help getting from point A to point B. Like sometimes the camps are populated with folks that are already signed to a Universal or a Sony ATV and they're up and coming. We really try to get into the community. The DC area, we sent a bunch of folks in by train, paid for their hotel, let them stay in the studio and write and work with each other for 2 days, that type of stuff as well, like to get into your community. So like Gloria is saying, I really like the whole New York, digging into the community is really important to keep growing. And, I try to always getting calls and always try to recommend, you know, females that I know all the time on sessions. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not that folks don't want to hire them. It's just that they're not there yet. There's not an, and
exactly.
it's a difficult field. Like, I don't know. And I'm sure people ask you this all the time as well. Why aren't there more? I don't know exactly. All I can say is it's tough. It's a tough field, and maybe sometimes women choose a safer path, or they're not encouraged enough, or you have to be pretty gutsy and tough to get into this field. It's a lot of hard work, but it's extremely rewarding. So,
Absolutely.
all right, so we're getting up. Oh, it's 4 o'clock, and I want to get to some questions. I don't want to keep you too long. Last question here. Any additional advice that you might have for some of the people out here listening to us today?
Yeah, so I guess I've touched on it a little bit, but really just being versatile, trying to do, wear different hats, just trying to gain a variety of skills, studying your craft, really sticking to it, reaching out to people. I mean, social media is a great resource. I mean, I have young people hitting me up all the time, and I respond when I can. But there are many resources out there. The organizations we mentioned, again, hitting people up, networking. You just gotta, like you said, work your butt off and just be ready for the opportunity when it comes.
Be in it to win it.
Exactly.
Anne, any other thoughts?
Yeah, I think that engineering wise, like there's always stuff to learn. I'm still a student of the game. Don't ever get like down on what look at the opportunity that there's always going to be something to learn and get into the depth of engineering. It's not just about recording a vocal or learning auto tune. There's a depth to every aspect of this industry, whether you're dumping drums, whether you're dumping keyboards, tracking live instruments, learn it all. embrace it all, follow the trends in the industry, and put yourself in a position, like, get out of the bedroom, try to get with a producer where you could work, even if it's in a production facility, or, pound the pavement a little bit, try to get into a studio, try to get out of the bedroom so you can network and learn. And, obviously we are all communicating on social media. It's so incredible to even learn. I look at certain things on social media and I'm learning off of Twitch, watching these mixers. And that's the beauty of it. There's so many different ways to learn and network. And I would say just continue to, get out of the bedroom, get in the studio, go try to evolve. Those are that you're going to evolve as an engineer and a producer and a writer if you can, put yourself in some situations that are going to be able to challenge you. So
Absolutely. Interning,
yep.
working, maybe interning in a studio, or even, just collaborating with two or three other people, other musicians, so that, because you really need to hear things with someone else's ears too. Sometimes you have to sort of bounce things off each other, and that's like a great way to learn too. So, all right. So I have a couple questions if you still have a little bit more time here. So from Facebook, from our folks listening. Question from Michael. Do you print mixes early in case you get lost in the weeds? How often do you strip mixes back to square one?
Definitely. Oh, I print all the time. I mean, when I feel like I'm at a good place, I'll print, send it to the client, and I expect notes usually, just to make sure, we're on the same page or we're going in the right direction. So definitely printing as I go, and then making corrections and kind of doing back and forth. Do I ever strip it to I mean, it depends. It depends on the notes. I mean, if the client says that that's not it, let's go back to square one, then I'm always willing to do that. As I'm mixing, obviously taking breaks to rest my ears, listening to references and different things to regain perspective. But at the end of the day, it's really about just sending it off and getting feedback, just to make sure I'm going in the right direction.
Um, let's see, I have another question from Jean Montalvo, one of our officers, actually, AES New York Section officers. How much have you found the creative has overlapped with the technical these days, and what does that look like? Do you ask before offering thoughts or advice, or do you just offer it up?
How much does the creative take over the technical? Is that what the question was?
How much have you found the creative has overlapped with the technical these days, and what does that look like?
I think it all works hand in hand, right? Like, as an engineer, you have to forget all the things you learned. You have to become creative. As in, the best engineers out there are the creative ones that can add to the production,
Mm-hmm.
that can play with the crayons in the crayon box and be creative, and aren't just pushing record. I think it all overlaps these days. A great engineer is also a great producer, in my opinion, right? Like,
Absolutely.
they work hand in hand these days. I tend to not want to dig into how are my calibrations. I try to forget all the sometimes when I'm working with Alicia, I have to be creative. It's like I have to paint the picture with her. So it's more on the creative side of engineering. And some engineers just want to press record. They don't want to dive into, hey, let's change 5 mic pre's, because Alicia will sit there and do 10 takes creatively, switching mic pre's, compressors, until she finds the vision of the vocal that she's going for the song. So it's always a combination and a balance of technical and creative, like I always try to make sure my mixes, she pushes stuff to the limit. I'm trying to stay in the parameters of, like, loudness wars, and not printing too hot and not having too much compression. And what is my gain stage? What is my image, my space, my depth, my frequency spectrum in terms of technical aspects? But then the creative side of that, I have to follow her lead and sometimes throw all that out. She's like, I don't have a bass on this song, so you know what? And frequency spectrum, find the low end from something else, whether it's an 808, whether it's the low note on the piano. So I think the technical side and the creative side work hand in hand. You have to know the technical side so you can know the colors in the crayon box, right? The different compressors, the different EQs, the different, microphones and mic pre's, and know when and how to use them, I would say.
I think that's a pretty fair enough answer. And knowing the technical stuff that well also just frees you up to be creative. So it
Yeah.
definitely works well together. Another question for either one of you from Pontus Gunvey. Do you use something like Steve Slate Trigger 2 to enhance a live recorded drum kit, like adding in an extra kick or snare? And any specific tips on getting a great sounding live drum kit?
I track drums a lot, almost every day. I tend to, if I want to add to my drum kits, I tend to have drum libraries on deck and tend to line that stuff up using tab to transient. I don't use a plugin or to look at the waveforms and replace the samples. I tend to add drums in later on. I love tracking live drum kits. I start with, what is my drum kit? What are the skins on my drum kit? What kind of drum kit am I using? Is it coated heads? Is it clear heads? Clear heads have more attack. Coated heads sound warm. So I try to get the sound on the drum kit way before I'm recording it. And you don't need many drum kits. I have a few snares. I have lots of drum kits and snares, but you could take one drum kit, change the heads, focus on the tuning of it, and really dive, find the sound that you're going for before you're hanging microphones. And then the microphones and mic pre's come next, right? That's how and then the compression, and then the room mics and how many room mics we have up. And the one thing I always try to teach people when tracking drums, especially with room mics, is 1 foot is 1 millisecond delay, right? So if I'm hanging my microphone up in a room that's 20 feet, 20 feet up, yes, when you listen to the room mic, right, it's going to sound a little delayed, right? You don't have to get in, and sometimes everyone is lining everything up these days because they could see it. I don't really do that. Like, I feel like part of the reason why we hung the microphone up that high was to get that distance and to get that room sound. I see a lot of new engineers looking at waveforms and just moving the waveforms so everything lines up. We never did that with tape. We didn't have we didn't have the ability. We used our ears, and the room mics were the room mics. So I try to teach a little bit of retro futuristic techniques when tracking drums. And that's one of the things I noticed that a lot of new engineers do. They start lining hi-hats up, and I'm like, no, just leave it.
Yeah, the slight imperfections are what makes the beauty of it. It's like it's 50-50, sometimes a little bit of that is fine, but absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. But to adjust a room mic, which is why we hung it in a certain spot in the first place, right? So I try, and also to dive into the tone, learn the drum kit that you have, the wood on the drum kit, the size of the kick drum, the size of the toms and the cymbals. Change that up first, and then dive into your microphones and the placement of your microphones, and then from there your mic pre's, right? And then from there the compression that you have going to tape or to Pro Tools, and then what you have running back from Pro Tools on your auxes in Pro Tools. So I build all my kits up that way.
Gloria, anything different you'd like to add?
Sure. I guess you asked about trigger. I have used that. I will also layer using tab to transient. It really depends on what they're going for. And again, ditto everything. With everything Ann said about the miking, and also the player is very important. Are you working
super important?
Yeah. So all of that comes first before you dive into EQing and layering and all that stuff. That's kind of making up for what you couldn't capture.
Any favorite room for you, Gloria, for recording drums?
Studio A at Power Station.
There you go.
Legendary room.
There you go. A beautiful room.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of really cool rooms out there. Let's see, one more. I think I have one more question, and let's see. I'm scrolling here at that one. From Adam. Question for all. While working in the box, do you miss the sort of slowness when, say, waiting on a tape machine to rewind? Angela sort of touched on this. Yes, if that makes any sense. Yes, I guess I did touch on it, but Any thoughts on that?
Well, I never had to do that. You know,
Yeah,
we're well into the digital
you're the
age.
baby here in the group,
So
so
yeah, I'm used to just working really fast, and so I can't relate.
I can kind of jump in. When we used tape back in the day, some machines would take about 8 seconds to lock, right? And we'd have to cue, we'd have our cue sheet and have to cue, we'd have to have notes and make all of our cue sheets. Now we have markers in Pro Tools, but
yeah,
we'd have to use the remote and be really quick. And then as the tape learned the lock, right, and learned
yeah,
the tack numbers and pulses, then it would lock a little quicker. Then the 3348 came along, which locked via control track and to machine to machine. That was a 4 second lock. So that was like, and then we have Pro Tools. The thing that's different, and I'll say, yes, you have to be very quick now, and artists are very impatient now. Like everything takes too long. And sometimes, like, you have to slow the pace down for 1 second, especially if you need to listen to something, you want to make sure you have everything saved. We didn't have undo back in the day. So the pace was like, okay, we might have to stop
Yeah.
and make sure we have, and before we do this punch, let's have a safety of the vocal. Because if we record over the wrong word, we've lost it. Now there's 32 levels of undo, which is, you could forgive your mistakes. But back in the day, it was really slow because we had to, you remember this, Angela, we'd have to make
yeah.
set slaves to have backups. And it took
Very,
time to jump to another tape. So,
yeah, and it was all about cost too. If they could afford, if they wanted to afford it, and there was definitely the wait, the lockup,
yeah.
wait. You just take a breath, but it
I
would,
will say
and
this,
we.
nothing sounds better than tape. I still
No,
use,
I agree. I agree.
there's no converter in the world. We pulled up some old Alicia songs because she has 20th anniversary from one of her albums, and just listening to tape as opposed to, A to D and D to A converter doesn't sound the
I,
same still till today.
I, yeah, I know. I find that you have to work a little harder to get that sort of sound, that
Yep.
warmth, and the fundamentals, etc. So, and whenever I can, certain projects I like to track to 2 inch and bounce back in, but we don't always have that opportunity. So, but
Right.
it's definitely a great way to work if you can, and at least a couple times, or to try it. For those of you that are just starting out, if there's an opportunity, and you go to a studio, and you might want to just check it out and try it and see what the sound is, what the difference is, and what you think. So, but I think we've exhausted our questions. Let's see. So Anne and Gloria, stand by for now. I'm going to end the stream in a second, but hang on. Thank you very much for coming on today. It's been a great panel, and I know everyone has really enjoyed it. And thank you to everyone else for coming to check us out today. Next month, we're going to have a jobs and audio panel. The date is to be released, probably second or third week of April, and we'll have some more events coming up. So stay tuned, everyone. So thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
having me.
you. So stand by for a second.